All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Rise to Your Peak podcast. I am here with my beautiful girlfriend, Erin Renzelman. She's also my partner in the business at Ryze HRT. She's co owner and CFO. This is our first episode of Rise to Your Peak. So today is just all about getting to know us a little bit better, getting to know the clinic a little bit more, and kind of giving you a taste of what we'll be talking about in future episodes and whatnot as well. So the first topic that I want to touch about today is why we opened Rise. We both have had some different experiences, mine primarily with my own health and my family's health, but also quite a bit of experience in the fitness and bodybuilding world. And you've had some experiences with your physical health, hormone health, mental health, and the fitness world as well. And so, bringing those things together is really what put us on this path. And, since we've been together, we've both worked with a couple different functional physicians and a few different clinics. And in that time, the biggest issue that we ran into was just being limited by the person in charge, whether that be the person with prescribing authority, some of the physicians we worked with, the owner and management of the clinics that we worked with. And that's essentially what led to us deciding to go ahead and open our own place and be able to provide the highest level of care to the widest audience possible without any limitations from anyone else being in charge or behind the wheel, So, going into this, I'd say our primary focus was to, do essentially what we've said quite a bit, bridging the gap between functional medicine and Western medicine, and providing more of a preventative care model, not so focused on band-aiding with pharmaceuticals. And my other focus as a longtime online coach was to provide a resource for the bodybuilding community and fitness community as a whole, that they trusted, and that there wasn't this constant concern of judgment and gaslighting and misinformation happening that we see so often in our industry. Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
The only thing that I would say that might be important to note is, one of the main reasons and things that excited us about having our own clinic is being able to treat others the way we wanted to be treated when it came to healthcare and the focuses of each encounter with a healthcare provider. So that would be, the one thing that I would circle back to note. But yeah,
Yeah. Well,
I
you've
agree.
definitely had some unsavory experiences in a couple different,
Yeah.
I guess you could say, categories, whether we're
Right.
talking about hormonal health,
Hmm.
or mental health,
Right.
even some physical issues with, physical therapists and
Yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, that shines through in regards to your passion with that and providing that next level service,
Right.
but also next level education as it leads to that service.
Right. And it might not always be like we have your solution, but it's at least somewhat of an answer to help gain clarity on the situation and all of those things, because that's always the most frustrating thing is you go to the doctor. I could give a million different examples. You go to the doctor and they're just like, I don't no, or they tell you
Yeah.
wrong, and then you're not getting
It's in your
better,
head.
or yeah,
Yeah.
all those different things. And
Your blood
so
work looks
to
normal.
right, so to
Yep.
finally to have people who are finally were able to validate how somebody's feeling and tell them, yeah, everything, you're not crazy, you do have these symptoms, and your blood work shows that matches up, and we have this answer.
Yeah.
Might not always be a one and done fix or
Sure.
those types of things. But we at least know how to help people, whether that be, the variety of situations that we can
Yeah.
actually help
Yeah.
and get people feeling better instead of just turning them on their way and being like, well, that sucks. I don't know what's
Well, and
tell
I think that's what from our experience so far, most people are looking for
you.
that.
Right.
Yes, they're looking for solutions, but almost more importantly, they're looking for an answer so that they can better understand.
Their situation.
And we see this all the time, just this sigh of relief of validation.
Right.
Yes, unfortunately, you do have this dysfunction and we're headed in the trajectory of chronic disease, but this is why, and we can change course.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing that we can see that's been
Oh,
missing,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And just in people's reactions, like you said, you can literally hear it, whether it be on the phone, see it if you were on a video call, or just even via email communication. Like, wow, finally somebody who put together the pieces and
Right,
was able to provide a different avenue than just like, here's some more medication, or
right.
sorry, you're stuck like that. So I think that's been really fulfilling for both of us,
Yeah,
because that really drove a big reason of our why was to finally be the change, and be able to provide answers for people. And so anytime we get to do that, it's been really uh, fulfilling and
absolutely.
amazing. It makes everything worth it.
Absolutely. A common thing that you'll hear us say, and you'll also hear plenty of other functional practitioners say, is we want to be the change
Right.
that we hope to see
Mm-hmm.
in the system. And that's what we're working towards every day.
Yeah.
So, on that note, I wanted to segue into, how things have gone so far for us at Ryze HRT. We've been open just under 2 years. Our 2 year anniversary is coming up very soon in November.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think that it's been that long already.
Totally.
I think we're in between 5,500 and 6,000 patients,
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
somewhere in that threshold. And it's obviously growing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We've teamed up with hundreds, if not thousands, of athletes and coaching teams to better service the fitness community, and I feel like we've done an incredible job helping them differentiate misinformation and basically unlearn misinformation and relearn better information, smarter approaches to weight loss, to muscle growth, to overall health optimization. And I think that we've also been able to reach, certain populations that we would have never been able to reach previously and help them as well.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been really crazy to kind of see how it's just grown on its own, and kind of, just by word of mouth, it really traveled pretty far, which
Yeah.
has been really awesome. Of course, we've done marketing as well, but I think that if I were to try to summarize the last 2 years of like, how has it gone? It's a pretty loaded question, but if we
Yeah.
were to, if our focus in that question is how has it gone with our ability and success of helping people, I think that's been astronomical. I think
A
that's
hundred
been
percent.
insanely successful, and I don't say that in a bragging way. I say that in a really proud way. I
Yeah.
feel like we've done a really good job. Our whole team, not just Matt and I, our whole team has done a really good job of turning people's health around and
Yeah.
getting them feeling better, and providing answers and providing alternative routes instead of staying on medications. We we've done a really good job of, incorporating natural options for people
Absolutely.
before putting them on medications. And
Absolutely.
even if that means that they don't come to us for hormone replacement, that
Right.
they don't need it. We don't need to
Right.
charge them for hormones if they don't need them. So I think that in that regard of how has the last 2 years been, it's been amazing. It's
Yeah.
been incredibly stressful in
It
some
has.
regards, but in regards to helping patients and, you know, seeing success in being the change, I think that we have been doing a really good job of that.
I 1000% agree. And, the saying as old as time, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So, yes, we've had some ups and downs. We've had, 100-hour work weeks, no sleep, significant legal woes. We've had to learn and adapt in the hiring process
Oh,
and
yeah.
building what we feel is the perfect team, which I think we're very
Oh, yeah.
close to, if not there now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's always room for improvement, but to your point, we've done very little marketing. It's been primarily word of mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and most of it just comes from people who are so happy to be in a better place that they share their experience.
Right?
And I think that's the best way to for us to grow and for us to continue to grow.
Right.
Is that same mindset. And, one of the purposes of this podcast is to just get the word out there more,
Yeah.
let people know that there is a second opinion, there is an alternative opinion from allopathic care, and, just taking another anxiety medication, or, the goal. And this may sound counterintuitive to a lot of people, but although we own an HRT clinic who primarily profits off of the sales of different products, we always consider it a win for someone to not need to purchase prescription medications.
Right.
There's tons of benefits from peptide therapy and stuff like that. And for those who do benefit from hormone replacement therapy, that's wonderful. It's life changing.
Right.
But like you said, what makes us different than so many other places is the fact that our specialists are more than happy to let someone know, hey, you don't need to purchase this. Everything is looking pretty good. Let's talk about sleep, diet, lifestyle habits, and maybe look at some over the counter supplement support,
Right.
and check back in 60 to 90 days and then kind of go from there. Our goal is always to minimize the need of any type of medical intervention when possible. Another topic that I wanted to kind of touch on is our continued hopes and plans for the future. And, one of the biggest things that I want to keep seeing is we often hear that functional medicine is considered preventative healthcare, but realistically, we're not quite there yet. We're still in the space of reversing disease and dysfunction. We're not quite in the space yet where we can say for most of the American population that we're preventing disease and dysfunction. Now, obviously, when we look at the Western medicine model, it's just treating your symptoms and band-aiding the symptoms. We could call it symptom management,
Right.
not even, necessarily symptom reduction or removal of symptoms. So
It's
we're
adding symptoms because of the other medications.
exactly. And so where I think we want to trend is to continue this path towards prevention and preventative health care. And we are going to play as big of a role as possible, but to really accomplish that in the entire United States, it's so much bigger than just
Oh,
us.
absolutely. Right.
Where we do our part is continuing to spread the word, networking with other functional professionals and open minded physicians who've taken a step away from the stronghold that corporations and whatnot have on the industries. But I think what we're going to continue to see is changes towards the toxic exposure in our environment, the water we drink, the pesticides and chemicals on our food, the chemicals that are on our clothing and in our cleaning supplies.
The chemicals in our food that are
In our
processed
food,
and all
yeah.
that stuff.
I think all of that is what is the next big step for preventative healthcare. And then obviously a big part of that is educating the current physicians because, there's definitely some bad seeds out there and some closed-minded people. But overall, the general medical profession is here to help. They've just been misguided and poorly educated on what health actually or help actually looks like. And so we need to re-educate them and expand their skill set. The fact that the current med school curriculum says nothing about exercise, nothing about diet, very minimal about the importance of sleep, very minimal about toxic exposures, if any. I think all of this needs to be included in order for preventionary healthcare to matter, because those are still the people at the end of the day that the majority trust.
Right.
Has there been a shift since 2020 where people have realized that they need to be their own biggest health advocate? And has there been a shift of less trust towards Western medicine? Absolutely.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, even though we are an alternative medicine practice, what we want to ideally see is changing the system so that we don't have to, we no longer have to distrust the system in
Right.
place.
Yeah.
We want to continue to lead the charge and lead by example of this is how we improve the entire medical system in America.
Right.
And hopefully one day, HSA cards, FSA cards, and overall medical insurance will cover alternative healthcare and preventative healthcare. Because at the end of the day, that should be everyone's goal. And are people going to lose money? Certainly. But that shouldn't be our number one priority. And it's never been our number one priority.
Absolutely.
And we're doing just fine.
Yeah, well, totally. I think, keeping someone sick, will you make money off of them? Yes. But when they trust you and when they're happy with you and when they're feeling good, they actually have opportunity to expand what
Totally.
they might need from you or the next goal,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're done with you, and sometimes they are. Sometimes
Right.
they get better, and that's okay, and that's just what it is. Best of luck to you. But sometimes it is like, okay, great, my autoimmune has completely resolved. Is completely resolved. I'm now feeling a million times better. Now I want to get into exercise.
Sure.
Now I want to get into possibly losing some weight, whatever the case may be. And if they're happy with you and trust you, they're going to continue going to you. They're going to
Absolutely.
continue taking your advice. And so then you're just we have become a really good resource for people. And not only, do we get emails just about stuff in general? What
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
what kind of protein powder do you
Yeah.
recommend? Those types of things.
Yeah.
And of course, we're happy to answer those questions for people. But and I appreciate that they trust us to
Totally.
ask us those questions, and that
100%.
we're the people that they are, looking as resources to,
Yeah.
kind of put them on the right path and keep them on that path. And I don't take that lightly. So I think that is a big part of our hopes and dreams
Yeah.
for the future, is just continue to be a resource for people who maybe they don't get their care from us,
Right.
but because they saw a podcast episode, they saw a post, a testimonial on
Right.
social media, they saw something, and it led them to spark that interest, whether
Yeah.
that be with their functional provider
Right.
or that type of situation. We've never went at this in a greedy way,
No.
and I
No,
think
that's what kind of disbanded us from
right,
other companies
yeah,
and separated
absolutely,
us. But no, I agree with everything you said. And let's be honest, no matter what happens, there's never not going to be a demand for healthcare professionals.
right,
And there's never not going to be sick or injured people.
absolutely,
Instead of the chronic disease epidemic, they'll just be handling acute situations, which is what they're supposed to be handling. Emergency room, you know, the labor and delivery area,
right,
handling sinus infections and infectious disease and stuff like that. That's what they're supposed to be handling. And the rest should just be preventative. And I think one of the biggest reasons that, when we look at America's food and the food and drug situation in America compared to most other first world evolved nations, the argument is always about, free healthcare and this and that, but how about we just significantly reduce the need for healthcare, and then the expenses would be a lot less. We heard a podcast the other day. I think it was Bernie Sanders. He was using the comparison of Canada, and it sounds great in theory, but that I've coached tons of Canadian people. We actually are colleagues with Canadian practitioners and coaches. It sounds great on paper, but
right.
realistically, it can take you 6 months just to go see a doctor and get blood work done.
You won't even get the blood work done.
Yeah, you're fighting tooth and nail just to get help, and not to mention the idea of free healthcare is a fake idea. Canadians pay like 60% taxes, so it's not free. You're just
Yeah,
being taxed and then not paying directly for the healthcare. But where this model could possibly become possible, I just said possibly become possible, where this could possibly happen in America is if we reduce the need for healthcare and medical care
right,
so much, because the drugs are where all the expenses are from, especially as we get into diabetes and GLP-1 agonists and autoimmune diseases, like you mentioned. Immunosuppressants are insanely expensive. So if we get more into a preventative healthcare model, it could actually be a lot more attainable to have extremely low cost or not, if not free healthcare without our taxes tripling or
sure,
doubling.
yeah,
But, another thing that you said that I really agree with is, them not necessarily needing us anymore.
right,
The point of a functional health coach is that sooner or later your client doesn't need you.
right,
If you've been working with a client on functional health coaching for over 2 years, you're probably not hitting the mark.
right.
You haven't addressed something with their body's functionality.
You're missing something.
Yeah, if they still need functional health coaching. Now, like you said, if they convert from a functional health client to a lifestyle coaching client, or even a contest prep client, or some other competitive athlete, that's completely different. But if you are trying to reverse disease and dysfunction for over a year and a half or 2 years, you're missing the boat completely, and you're probably missing the forest between the trees, focusing on symptoms versus root cause. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's always been a goal of mine, is that these people are done. They're 100% better. They have nothing else to complain about. They have some new goals to achieve now, basically in their new body and new
Right.
mindset,
Yeah.
and they're ready to crush it. And, maybe Ryze is still supporting them via peptide therapy or hormone therapy. But other than that, they've learned
Right.
and they have a better understanding of nutrition, a better understanding of sleep and recovery
Right.
and overall lifestyle. They're also much more in tune with their own body
Mm-hmm.
to know when to push and pull back.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that I think, coaching teaches people is cause and effect, and the fact that your body will send you check engine lights
Right.
way before there's a problem. And we even, we still deal with issues all the time because
Oh
we
yeah.
are high stress and we are both what we consider, high performance entrepreneurs. And
Right.
so we're constantly trying to balance the career, pushing the
Focus.
career
Yeah.
goals, as well as some physical goals, getting ourselves back in shape after a little bit of downtime, getting back in the gym, getting back on our bullshit,
Right.
back on our consistent diet and water and supplements and all that jazz. So what we've been part of that too, but
But the main thing really is just learning
yeah,
all of that stuff. We listen to our bodies really well. We
we
know
do.
that, even if Monday is a workout day, but we didn't sleep well the night before, it's no longer a workout day.
All right.
And that's just how it is. Was it a super, super insanely busy day at work and we didn't get meals in? Okay, then why would you train?
Right.
So that type of stuff where we just really use a lot of logic with our decision
Yeah.
making instead of emotional. And I think that that is something that it's kind of funny because for the most part, I would say majority of your clients specifically do learn that. They
Yeah.
learn how to listen to their body,
Yep.
and not only in regards to stress management, but the foods
Yep.
and stuff like that. And it's always so funny because I get not a lot of people, but some people who are like, I'm just really scared. I don't know what foods to start eating again. And I always want to be like, I feel like you didn't pay attention to the certain
They're still
things that
food
you,
focused.
yeah, that you needed
Yeah.
to pay attention to. And,
Yeah.
that's obviously everybody is different in,
Yeah.
in what they can
Grasp.
grasp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's just always so funny. But that is a really important aspect
Yeah.
is the stress management,
Yeah.
knowing how to learn that,
Yeah.
and then in the future you can avoid a lot of dysfunction,
Sure.
and a lot of relapsing into dysfunction
Yeah.
if you can just learn these really easy tools of
Right.
stress management.
Right. Because the body will tell you long in advance.
Absolutely.
It doesn't just break down on the side of the road. The signs come on way more in advance, but society has taught us to disregard everything. And so you have to unlearn that and relearn. And, to be fair, the food focused people, there's a reason for it. Every time they ate something, they had a horrible response.
Right.
And so, yes, during healing, we remove inflammatory foods. We remove foods that cause them symptoms, and they feel a lot better. So they correlate that with, as long as
the
I don't
food.
eat these
Right.
foods, I'll feel fine. But what they don't understand is that's temporary changes. Just like if you broke your foot and the doctor said don't run for 8 weeks, that doesn't mean never run again.
Right.
It means you don't need to cause more inflammation and harm while your
While it's
your
healing.
system is healing.
Right.
And we also, if you do have bacterial overgrowths, we don't want to accidentally feed that with prebiotic fibers and stuff like that. So the temporary food strategies are there to limit symptoms and assist and expedite your healing. But we always want to reintroduce foods at the appropriate time and bring back proper food diversity,
Right.
and not surround ourselves with fear of foods long term.
Right.
That also goes back to our food quality
Absolutely.
and the toxic exposures in our food and water. So, all of that should continue to improve as people get more educated. But realistically, as many people that we've helped and as many people that have been helped by functional medicine, it's still, I feel, a small population.
Yeah.
You know, when we're hearing statistics that say 60% of Americans are obese and diseased, that means we're not reaching enough people yet.
Right.
And so we still have plenty of work to do. And again, that's why we're establishing different platforms and
Right.
networking with other people so that people can know that there is help and that there is hope.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
The last thing that I really want to touch on is what we feel are the major problems in our healthcare industry, in our fitness industry, and then in society as a whole. My biggest issue with the healthcare industry is that they've been somewhat corrupted by big businesses who basically pay to control how things are done. They control the education in med school, which then sets the stage for everything, every action and decision a physician is going to take for majority of their career. And so I think we're set up for failure to be dependent on Band-Aids and medications from early on. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I think that the media is very implicated in that and avoiding telling us the bad about medications.
Right. Yeah.
And also avoiding any type of real discussions around how bad our healthcare is, how bad our choices are, and stuff like that. And kind of, again, what I mentioned earlier is my other gripe is just the lack of discussion about food and sleep and stress,
Right.
and exercise.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that. My main gripe, without getting a lot of doctors angry, would just be the lack of necessary education.
Yeah.
I think that they're taught a lot of unnecessary stuff,
Sure.
and if I paid that much money for a degree and knew so little, I would be really upset.
Sure.
In their abilities to actually help someone. Can they
Yes.
stop them from dying? Yes.
Yes.
But can they get them feeling like a healthy, functional human being? No.
Right. Optimal life.
Right, exactly. And so, I think that uh the one of the biggest issues is just all the normalizing that happens, and it's just because it's common doesn't mean that it's normal, and doesn't mean that you should stay in that dysfunction.
Right.
That is, to me, the biggest issue is just the fact that they will blanket statement something
Yeah.
based on one single encounter,
Right.
and then one 15-minute encounter. Because
Right.
let's be real, you sit at the doctor's office for 3 hours total, but 2.5 hours is in
Waiting.
waiting.
Yeah.
And then they're in there for 15 minutes, and then the rest you're checking out and going
Yeah.
and picking up some medications. And,
Right.
that happened recently. We
Yeah,
went and
it did.
I was having problems with breathing, and they told me that it was silent GERD, and they prescribed me 4 medications, one of them being an inhaler. And I'm like, okay, I'm not picking up any of those, but
Right.
thank you.
And it turns out you got your stress under control.
Yeah.
You got some body work done. Your
Yeah.
chest muscles and clavicles were very
Right.
tight.
My stress was so bad that I had clenched up so much that it was impacting my
Yeah.
breathing, and he wanted to prescribe me antacids and
Yeah.
an inhaler, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, never
Yeah.
mind.
Well, I think what we've learned lately too is, that the system sets doctors up for failure because you're spending, $250,000 to $500,000, or you're better yet, you're in debt a
Right.
$250,000 to $500,000 from student loans. And they basically convince you that put your head down and do this, and you'll pay it all back and you'll have a great life. Doctors are the highest stature, So, and they're also paid for how much work they do and how many people they essentially turn and burn through their system.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're incentivized to see more people. So if you're burnt out from 10 years of school, you're finally ready to make money, it takes a different type of person to say, now I need to re-educate myself in a whole different capacity
Right.
and not make money and not do what I'm told and not follow the trend, you
Yeah.
know? So it's set up poorly in that regard that they're not incentivized to educate themselves further. They're not incentivized to offer diets and lifestyle changes. In fact, it's the opposite
Right.
most of the time. They're de-incentivized, and they can even get in trouble. And that's another part of the system that's a problem, is that they've separated health into 100 different, categories or specialties, and they've basically made doctors believe, stay in your lane, and you can get sued for talking about something you're not educated or specialized in.
Yeah.
So why would a doctor even want to mention your gut or your hormones or anything? They have to stay in their lane and offer what
And
they're
refer you out.
right,
To
offer what they're allowed to offer and refer you out. And then because there's no cross communication, there's no one analyzing the body as a whole, you could actually get referred to 6 different people, put on 6 different medications,
Right.
and no one is communicating about how all 6 issues have the same root cause, none of which the medications treat.
Right. They
So
actually make it worse. Or
they yeah, at the very least, they either make it worse or at the very least mask it so that it just continues to snowball on its own internally.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's obviously our biggest gripe with the healthcare system, the fitness industry. My biggest gripe with the fitness industry is there's tons of misinformation, a lot of it coming from the healthcare system because that's who we're supposed to trust. So there's a lot of misinformation in that regard. There's just also a lot of misinformation from uneducated people who were respected and revered because of how their body looks and what they accomplished physically, which we learn more and more that has very little to do with their education or knowledge.
Right.
So they're speaking on topics that they're actually not educated about whatsoever. And majority of us don't know better. We see them, we see that they've accomplished everything we want to accomplish. So of course we're going to follow their lead. And so tons of misinformation. But with that, there's also until recently been a lack of desire for new information or a second opinion. They trust who they trust, and you brought up, rational thinking over emotional thinking. Everyone in the fitness industry is emotionally driven. They are connected to their goal of fat loss, of muscle growth, of stepping on stage, of proving so and so wrong, proving themselves something. They're so emotionally attached that rational thought is out of the equation, and they can't even open their mind to hearing rational thought.
Right.
And I think those are my biggest gripes. There's obviously plenty of other things we could say, but in recent experience, those have been my biggest gripes. The only other thing I'll say about the fitness industry is the food and the misinformation around food. This focus around weight loss, and everyone just thinks about food in terms of weight loss. So calories in, calories out, 0-calorie food, 0 sugar food, and artificial sweeteners and diet hacks. Nobody's actually thinking about food as our fuel and as everything that our body runs off of and relies on. it's fuel for our muscles. It's fuels for our brain. It controls all of our metabolic function. It controls our hormone function and all of our intricate systems. And so I think that there's such a misprioritization of food quality and our food choices because the focus right now is just weight loss and calories.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that, it is just a ton of misinformation. And unfortunately, people, like you said, believe people who look the part.
Yeah.
And what they are failing to realize is that person looks that way 99% because of their genetics.
Totally.
And even if you were to do exactly what that person was doing in every single regard, you would never look like them.
Never.
And so that's something that really gifted athletes maybe don't know they're using, but they are.
Right.
And they make a lot of money off of that. And, I guess
they don't even know how easy they have it.
Right.
And that's the funniest part because they think they work hard.
Right.
But their hard work is 2 hours in the gym. So out of 24 hours, they're working hard 2 hours. And realistically, the gym is what they love. So are they really working that hard?
Right.
If it's,
they're like, I'm going to war. It's like,
yeah.
well, that's actually like your favorite time
it's your favorite time of the day that you look forward to.
Yeah.
So are you really sacrificing? Are you
Right.
really working hard? You're doing what you love.
Right.
And the rest of the day, you're just kind of fucking around.
Right, you're eating meals and taking naps, and like, great if you get to do that, super cool. But
and you get to have this super diverse diet of basically, you've never weighed anything, you never counted calories in your life, and it's always just come so easy to you, and you oftentimes will hear them like gaslight the rest of us and being like, guys, it's not that hard. It's so easy. Just, my fitness pal.
Just drink your egg whites and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, that's the probably most frustrating thing to me is that just people take the advice and guidance of people who should not be giving advice or guidance. And so that is a frustrating thing because then people don't meet their goals. Then they get this bad taste in their mouth regarding whatever the case may be because they don't like this coach. They don't like that coach. That coach didn't learn their body. That's what everybody's always saying. That coach didn't know my body. I just didn't like their coaching style, whatever. And it's just like, well, you're actually following the guidance of an Instagram person instead of following the guidance of your coach, and that's why you're not seeing any progress.
Right, absolutely.
So that's the social media world has really taken over the fitness world, and I think that's become the biggest issue.
I totally agree. In regards to society as a whole, similar but different, misinformation is huge, and lack of education is huge. Mm-hmm. In society, they don't even know that they're not educated because they're trusting the media, they're trusting their doctors, they're trusting these people. Right. They're trusting the FDA and the NIH. And so they don't even know how misinformed they are. And so that's a big issue in itself because, number one, you have to realize you need a second opinion. Then you have to open your mind to that second opinion.
Right.
And it's also a situation where it's systemic in the sense that they're already so overwhelmed, they can't handle to find out how misinformed they are. And it's very hard for a lot of people to understand how many changes need to be made for them to be healthy. We hear it all the time. I can't do this. This is way too demanding. The diet changes, the lifestyle changes, focusing on getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. They come up with all these excuses about their kids and their work and their family life and how none of this is possible. And it's just like, well, look, I do understand that it's not going to be easy, but a conversation that I've had with a lot of people just in the past few weeks is if it takes this much change, this much sacrifice, this many shifts to get you healthy, then shouldn't we be reflecting on how unhealthy we are as a society?
Right.
If everything that we were doing that we thought was normal was killing us slowly and putting us into disease and dysfunction, and we had to do all this new stuff to get out of disease and dysfunction and continue it to prevent it, that should be highlighting how bad off we are. But again, I think people are just so overwhelmed with, basically surviving and just
Right.
getting through life and trying to be happy and, accomplish their goals, that it's hard for them to even, take a step back and say, well, I really need to get healthy.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is that by being healthy, they're going to be able to accomplish so much more. They're going to be happier.
Right.
They're going to be able to show up for their husband and kids better. They're going to show up for their job more effectively.
Yeah.
And they're going to live longer. So I feel like that's the biggest issue with society is just the lack of education and the lack of desire for new education because they just don't know how bad off they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say something I think we say almost all the time is people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So we can't be mad at somebody who truly doesn't know something.
Yeah.
But if you try to expose them to this new thought and they are very closed-minded to it, then that's on them.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the mindset we have with most of our patients in general, I think, is a lot of, you and I obviously started it, but we've pushed it onto our staff is, they are only going to be willing to listen to so much for the most part. Some people now. Some people are going to be so open and willing that it's going to be amazing for them.
Yeah.
There are going to be some people who they will have horrible blood work, horrible this and horrible symptoms, or no symptoms and say, well, no, I don't believe you. That's not true. That's
Right.
not me. That's not, and you could just have all the information in front of them and them still not want to listen to what you have to say. And I think that that's my biggest issue with society. And I can't say that this isn't an issue for myself because I know that it's an issue for everybody, but just everybody's desire to be comfortable and stay comfortable.
Yes.
And change is really hard to do, and so people try to avoid that as much as
Totally.
possible, whether that's relating to their physical health, their internal health, their mental health,
Yes.
Relationships in their lives,
Yes.
all those types of things, is that the avoiding being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue with society in general, in my opinion, and that's
You're so right.
a very big, in every way, it's they don't. We talk about this all the time. All of a sudden, a friend is nowhere to be found, and it's like, oh, there was a little tiff, and they didn't want to address it,
Right.
and now they're just not a friend anymore. And
Yeah.
so, that's
They'd
always,
rather ghost than open up and admit that they were wrong.
Right.
Open up to just a tiny bit of controversy so that you hold on to that friendship.
Right. Exactly. Confrontation, and by no means, I by no means am I scared of confrontation, and I try to, work on not always being attracted to it, but there are some people who truly just will not, no matter what, and so that's been something that's been hard for me to understand because I'm just like, well, can we just talk about it and it not be that big of an issue anymore?
Right.
But that furthermore into their health and all those types of things, I don't want to have to go to bed on time.
Right.
I don't want to have to not eat these yummy foods. I don't
Right.
want to have
I just
to,
want to do this magic pill or magic injection.
Right. I don't want to
And
have
continue
to
my path of comfortability.
Exactly. I don't want to have to temporarily hold back on some financial aspects
Right.
because I need to take care of my health.
Right.
That's, anytime that we even try to introduce a protocol or coaching or anything like that. It's just like so undoable. And it's like, well, but you spend $300 every weekend on dinners and stuff
Right.
like that. So I do think it's doable.
Totally.
And so that goes back to that uncomfortability that they try to avoid.
No, I 100% agree. Those were some great points.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was it for today. I hope everyone enjoyed our first episode. We'll have a lot more topics to come. We're going to have a lot of different guests. And our goal is to just, spread the word about functional medicine and spread the word about overall growth and evolution, getting out of your comfort zone and becoming the best version of you, rising to your peak.
Exactly.
That is the number one goal. But until next time, I hope you all have a great weekend and we'll talk soon, guys.